Greetings and welcome to everyone who has logged in for another episode. I like to call it an episode. Today we will specifically be discussing rounding off. So we will be discussing rounding off. So whenever we consider rounding off, we always round off a certain value to an estimated figure. And we will also see in this example some practical applications and also some common examples as well. But there are some basic rules that we have to consider, and I will basically try and summarize and take us through all of these rules. So let's say, for example, you have the number 39. Let's say you have the number 39. In the previous videos that we covered, specifically within this chapter, we know that we always have to understand what exactly is the meaning of a place value. Then, very simply, if I look at a certain number, its digits within that number, they form part of respective columns. Those respective columns, they can be divided into units, tens, hundreds, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, and so on and so forth. So the place value refers to the actual value of a digit, whether it falls into hundreds or tens or units, based on where that digit is placed within a particular number. So when we think about the number 39, I know that this digit 9 within 39 will be a unit. I know the digit 3 within 39 will form part of the tens. Then I know that this 3 in this number, this digit 3 within the number 39 is a 10, which represents number 30. Then I know the digit 9 within the number 39 is a unit. Then when you think about rounding off, if the example says round off this number 39 to the nearest 10, right? Then this nearest 10 is referring to a column, right? And we know that this 10 is the tens column. Within this tens column, there's a particular number, which is 3. Then, of course, the place value of this number 3, is what we consider, right? So we must always remember that when we round off, we always look at the particular column or place value that is being considered, and that's what we zoom into. Because this example is asking us to round off to the nearest 10, we immediately look at the tens column. And what is in the tens column? Yes, and what is in the tens column? It's the number 3. Then there are 2 important rules, right? And I'll write them for us. There are 2 important rules. So the very first rule says that if I have digits 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, then I must do what? I must keep the place value considered the same and all digits to the right of the place value must be replaced by zeros. So that's really important, right? That's really important. Then secondly, if I have values that are between 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, if I have digits like this, then I need to increase the place value by 1, right? So we need to plus 1, and once again, all digits to the right of the place, sorry for my handwriting, right of the place value must be replaced by zeros. So what does this mean? Let's look at this example. So once again, in this example, it said round off the number 39 to the nearest 10. So we break up our number that they have given us into various columns. We look for the tens column, which the rounding off example is requesting for. And when we look at the tens column, right, which is this T here, then actually we see that the number 3 is within this tens column. Whenever I want to round off a particular value, I look to the right of my place value each time, right? And the digit to the right of my place value that is being considered, that is when I look at these rules. So if the digit to the right of my place value is between 0 to 4, then I must keep the place value as it is, right? And then replace all other digits next to that place value by 0. If the digit to the right of my place value being considered is between 5 to 9, I must increase that place value by 1 and then keep all digits to the right by putting zeros, right? So we already can see that actually, let me just go back here. I can see that actually this number 9, it forms part of the numbers 5 to 9, right? What does this mean? It then means that I must do what? I must firstly keep this 3. I must increase it by 1. As this rule is saying, I must increase the value by 1 if the digit to the right of the place value is between these sets of numbers. I must increase that place value, which we highlighted here in red, by 1. Then all digits to the right, previously it was a 9, it must be replaced by a 0, right? Yeah, it must be replaced by a 0. Then basically what does that give us? It gives us the value 4, 0. And that's your answer. So then, considering this same example, imagine if this value fell in between the values 0 to 4. So once again, we have the same example, but let's say it wasn't 39 that we were considering, but let's say we were considering the number 32. Then once again, I ask myself, I firstly put down my number 32 and I check which columns these digits form a part of. I know that 2 is a unit. I know that 3 is a 10. Then I ask myself, this is asking me to round off to the nearest what? To the nearest 10. Then I must look at my number and I must find the tens column. What's in my tens column? It's a 3. Right? It's a 3. Then in this 3, right, whenever I'm rounding off, I must look to the right of my place value. So this, what the nearest XXX, that will be the place value that you consider. Then you go and look, where's my place value that I'm considering? It's 3. Once I know my place value, if I want to round off, I must look to the right of my place value. Then, when I look to the right of my place value, I must ask myself, is this digit between the numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or is it between the numbers 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? But we see this 2 is actually here, right? So rule 1 will apply. Then if it's rule 1, it says that I must do what? It says that I must keep, right? It says that I must keep the place value the same. I must keep the place value the same. So this remains the same. And then all values to the right, I must replace by a 0. Then what does that give me? It actually gives me the number 30. And this is actually the correct answer. Then let's look at a few more examples. Let's say we have the number 6,258. We can call this example 3. And let's say in this example, we want to round off to the nearest 100. So it says round off to the nearest 100. Then once again, I have to realize that if it's asking me to round off to the nearest 100, this will then become my place value. Then I will need to do what? I will need to break up my number 6,258. I must break it up into various columns. I know this 8 represents units. I know this 5 represents tens. I know this 2 represents hundreds. And the 6 represents thousands. It's asking me to round off to the nearest 100. So I take my square and I focus on the place value being referred to, right? Which is 100, the hundreds column. Then once again, I have to look to the right of my place value. And when I look to the right of my place value, I have to ask myself, is this digit, is it between, like the rules say, is it between 0, 1, 2, 3, 4? Or is it between 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? Which set does it form a part of? Then I can see this number 5, it forms part of this set, right? which is rule 2. Rule 2 tells us that if the digit to the right of your place value falls within this range, you must increase the place value, right? You must increase the place value by 1, and then all the digits to the right of the place value after you've increased it must be replaced by zeros. Then what does that look like? You're then going to have 6, 2. It must be increased by 1 as the rule says. Then it says all values to the right of the place value after you've increased it, they must be replaced by zeros. So then what would your answer be finally? Your answer would be your answer would be Your answer would be 6300, which is 6,300, right? Let's consider another example, or let's consider the same example, 6,2. Let's consider the same example, and let's say we have the example 6258 again, 6258, and call this example number 4. And let's say in this example, it's asking us to round off to the nearest thousand. Round off to the nearest 1,000 or 1,000, right? Then once again, I have to take my number. And I have to break it up. This is part of units, tens, hundreds, thousands. Then I know whenever it's asking me to round off to the nearest, this is going to denote or make known my place value I'm considering. Then I look for that specific place value within my number, and the place value would show the digit 6. Now if I'm rounding off, I must always look to the right of my place value. Then what number do I have to the right of that? It's the number 2. Then once again I have to ask myself, does this digit 2, which is to the right of my place value, does it form part of the set 0, 1, 2, 3, 4? Or does it form part of the set 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? If it forms part of the set, whichever set it forms a part of, that rule I apply, and I can see 2, right, will form a part of the set 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then what is required if that's the case? I must keep the place value the same, and then all digits to the right of the place value I just kept the same, I must replace it by 0. So I go back and I apply those same rules. I see 6, 2, 5, 8, because 2, it says that the place value, you keep the same. Nothing happens to it, right? Sorry, let me just quickly write this. Then it says all the digits then, after I've kept it the same, all the digits to the right, they become replaced by zeros. Then, what will my final value be? It will be 6,000. That's the correct answer. We can even consider The same example, once again, same example, 6, 2, 5, 8. And let's say it says for this example, and this is example number 5, it says consider this value and say you want to round off this value to the nearest 10. Round off to the nearest 10 or 10th, right? So as you are rounding off to the nearest 10, right? As you are rounding off to the nearest 10, then you go back to the same system, right? You write out the number 6258 and you divide it. Sorry, let me write this closer to the left, my left. So you write out the number 6258 and you write the various columns, right? This is units, tens, hundreds, thousands. Then you ask yourself, it's asking me to round off to the nearest. This denotes my place value. Then I have to find the place value I'm considering, and I see it's within this column. And what digit do I have here? I have the digit 5. Then I look to the right of my place value. I look to the right of my place value, and that's the digit 8. Then I have to ask myself, does the digit 8, when I look back at my rules, does it form part of the set in rule 1, which is referring to the digits 0, 1, 2, 3, 4? Or does it belong to the set in rule 2 that has the digits 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9? Then we see, it actually forms part of the set number 2, right? Rule 2. Then rule 2 tells me that I must do what? I must increase the place value by 1. And then after I increase the place value by 1, I must replace all other digits to the right of that place value with 0. Then I apply that same rule that is being instructed. I write 6, 2, 5, 8. This is units, tens, hundreds, thousands. It said I must do what? It said I must increase the place value. I must increase the place value by 1. And then all digits to the right of my place value, I must replace by 0. Then finally, what does that give me? It gives me 6, 2, 6, 0 as my final answer. And that's the correct answer. Then one of the important practical life examples we can think about. So if we have to just think about some practical examples. Sometimes the rules differ when you think about very practical examples. For example, if you think about someone's age, if I am 16 years old, and let's say I'm 16 years old and 7 months, and it says I must round off my age, right? And the question is, please, let me go back, and let's say the question is, please round off your age. So I'm not actually 16 years old, right? But let's just say for this example, let's say I'm 16 years old and 7 months, and it's asking me to round off my age. Then for specifically ages, right? If you are not, or rather, let me phrase it like this rather. Whichever age you fall a part of, right? Whether you're 16 years in 1 month, 16 years in 3 months, 16 years in 7 months, if you round off your age, it'll be approximately 16. If I'm 16 years old and 2 months. So this is actually the symbol when you round off. This is the symbol when you use rounding off. Yes. Then I would still be 16, right? If I'm 17 years old and 1 month, then I'm still approximately 17. So basically, when we think about ages, the age of a person doesn't follow the same rounding off rules as general numbers. When it refers to age, you will always be the base age that you have. So if you're 16 and 1 month, 16 and 3 months, 16 and 5 months, then you are still 16. If you are 17 and 1 month, 17 and 8 months, 17 and 11 months, you are still 17. So your base number always becomes your actual number. And that's why if you participate in athletics or certain sports, they will always say under 13, under 17, under 18, right? Which is basically the number that you have actually turned on the 1st of January. That's the number that you keep, or that's the age the base age you will go with for the rest of the year. I hope that makes sense. So, yes, I hope that makes sense. So also, when we think about people, right? When we think about people, say you want to find how many cars. Let's say you have, let's say you have 4 cars. So this was practical example 1. This is practical example 2. Let's say you have 4 cars, right? And each of these cars, each car can take 5 people, right? Or yes, and 5 people, right? Yes. So basically, if you think about that, that would mean I have 4 cars, I have 5 people, then I can only accommodate 20 people. But say for some reason you have 23 people. For some reason, you're going out to an event, maybe it's a wedding, and you find out that we budgeted for 20 people, but now we actually have 23 people. And you're trying to consider how many cars would I actually need to accommodate these 23 people. Then already if you say 23 people divided by 4 people, if you say I have 23 people divided by, so if I have 23 people, I just neaten up this example. Let's say 23 people need transport. Currently, right? Then I will have to say 23 people car. So if I have 23 people, then I would need to divide that by 5 people per car, right? Then I have to ask myself, how many cars would I need, right? That's what I want to know. If I have 23 people and I know I can fit 5 people into a car, how many cars do I need? Then very quickly, 23 divided by 5 is 4,6. That's equal to 4,6 cars. Right? It's 4,6 cars. Because the people scratch each other out, and then I'm just left with cars, right? Cars. So obviously in reality, I can't have 4,6 cars, right? Yeah, I can't have 4,6 cars. Then I have to then round off this figure. I know that I need more than 4 cars, right, to accommodate all of these people. So even though when I think about rounding off, I would want to round off to the smallest value, but I would actually need to round off to a much bigger value. Because if you think about it, I can't leave any people behind, right? If I have 5 people that can fit in a car and I have 23 people in total, we all need to go to the wedding. So I can't get 4,6 cars, right? I can only get 4 cars or 5 cars. So when I round off to 5. The reason I'm saying it like this is, say for example, I actually maybe needed to accommodate 20, let's say I actually needed to accommodate 20, 21 or even 22. Yeah, let's say I needed to actually accommodate 22 people instead of 25. Then 22 people divided by 5 people per car would be the same as 22 people times 5 over people. Then you know, based on your multiplication rules, that cancels out with that. Sorry about that. Let me rewrite this. Then you know that's the same as saying 22 people divided by 5 people car. And then that would give you 4,4 cars. Then once again, based on the common rounding off rules that I know, they will actually tell me that I need to round off 4,4 to actually the number 4. But when we think about practical examples, once again, every person needs to go to the wedding. Then because of that, I will then need to ensure that all people go. So even though my rounding off rules is telling me I need 4 cars, practically in reality, right, I can't have 4 cars. I need 5 cars to accommodate the 2 people that won't be able to go. And therefore, I would round off to 5 cars. So these are just examples of practical life experiences that are easy for us to maybe confuse with the general rules. And I thought it was important that we actually discuss it. So once again, always remember in all of these examples, whenever you are rounding off to specific values, you always use this symbol. You always use this symbol. Always use this symbol. Always use this symbol, right? Those are the symbols you have to use. So you cannot say that if I have 39 rounded off to the nearest 10, as we saw in our example, it would be approximately 40, right? As we saw in our previous example, it would be 40. But we cannot say equal to 40, because we know 39 is not equal to 40, right? We know that 39 is not equal to 40. Therefore, that's why we use this symbol to show it's approximately equal to that value. Then thank you so much, everyone, for your time. I hope that this video was really helpful, and yes, stay tuned for the next video. Thank you.